Hello, my name is ScienceBeard. I'm aiming to make shorter videos, so let's see how this goes. I'm going to talk about three things: stuck schools, staffing and recruitment, and of course the concerned trolling from OFSTED and some DFE nonsense. OFSTED says stuck schools keep underperforming staff. The upshot of this was that essentially failing schools or stuck schools, as described by OFSTED, were told by OFSTED that they were too focused on retaining unsuitable staff. I've already made a video about that. I will not get into that again. I will just reiterate that there is no recognition that leadership teams who preside over failing schools may not be competent to identify staff which may hold the school back. The main thrust here is that it is staff who are responsible, and as much as I like to think that we teachers have a positive impact on society, it ignores the myriad problems with the single pylon argument. It also ignores recruitment issues and staff availability, particularly for struggling schools. More on that in a bit. So why worry that the OECD study found that teachers in the UK are the youngest? Well, it should worry the government and its inspectors. If a company suddenly finds that its older staff are either leaving or finding other jobs, then questions should be asked. One of the reasons questions are not being asked is that nobody at the DFE or OFSTED seems to care. One reason may be that schools themselves have been involved in getting rid of older and more expensive teachers and employing younger teachers on the basis of salary. And for the first time in a long while, teachers have to negotiate their salary. If they don't, they won't know how much they will be paid. While this may seem okay and logical to some, consider this. Are young teachers going to negotiate effectively, or are they just grateful to have a job? And are they trained in this kind of negotiation? Schools have all the control. An interview, sometimes held over several days, can lead to an instantaneous job offer, which is the one thing that has been kept. Keep in mind that the starting salary is still relatively low and ramps up considerably after a few years. An observation contained in advice to new teachers from the NEU says that if your school doesn't openly tell you what they're going to pay you, then pay progression may also be a problem, and that has been my observation as well. Young teachers are often stuck on something like main pay scale or MPS 0.3 for a long time because the school strapped for cash doesn't want to or can't afford to pay more. So new teachers often don't reach a salary either commensurate with their experience, because that is the justification for not paying very much at the start, or one which allows them to feel valued. Older members of staff, and in particular leadership, will be on much more money. When I started, all experienced teachers with more than 10 years experience were simply given upper pay scale or UPS 0.3, the highest point without any leadership responsibility. By the time I got there, I had to apply to go through the threshold, or UPS 1, with unclear guidance, and I had to apply for UPS 2. In that time, new teachers had to show that they were good or outstanding just to progress on MPS, on the main pay scale. The abstract says, the situation for mature students who are training to teach is contradictory. On the one hand, they are sought after as recruits, welcomed onto courses and regarded as able to make a special contribution because of their experience. On the other, during the course and when applying for jobs, they may sometimes be seen as potentially disruptive, difficult and threatening because of this same life experience, and ultimately as unjustifiably expensive to employ. This paper draws on the perspective of a small number of older trainee teachers during and after their training, mostly through a secondary PGCE route. Its intention is to ensure that age is included and not ignored in the dynamics of training teachers, and crucially that potential dilemmas of age-related employment factors are acknowledged at the onset of training by those involved in the process. And yes, I did say route rather than route. I should have said route, but there we are. So, okay, the sample size was small, but here's the problem. This isn't true. Why do we have the youngest cohort of teaching staff in the developed world? This is page 3 of the government's strategy for recruitment and retention. I've split it sideways, the picture's at the bottom of the page. I'm not usually one for reading into clip art in documents. Most of it's inane anyway. But here you have an older woman standing next to a younger man. The implication being that recruitment and retention are important, and yet, look at the chapter titles. Chapter 1 is about creating a nice or nicer work environment. That's always good for both recruitment and retention. Chapter 2 is about new staff, not necessarily young staff, of course, but in the main new staff are young as well. Chapter 3 is about making people stay in the job, but it's not really aimed at older staff. Career and life developing? Please. Chapter 4, and I know that I'm a grammar Nazi here, is written as an explicit command rather than the gerund used in Chapter 2's tagline, and so sounds rather desperate. It also betrays that they have certain people in mind. If you don't fit into their idea of great people, what can you do? Tisk, tisk, government people. This is teaching 101 of what not to do. Let's have a look at their conclusions. I hope that their research was better than their proofreading, so it was published in February 2019. Let's have a look at a concise one-page summary for schools. Problem 1. Unnecessary workload through opaque accountability systems. Work with OFSTED, who are well known for their transparency and their easygoing attitude and not at all tendency to put pressure on. Problem 2. New teachers aren't supported well. Includes a sly dig at schools. Again. Solution. Dedicated mentor. Reduced timetable, which they already have or should have. But this is at the center of the strategy. Support like other top professions? Really? Are other top professions continually criticized and talked down? Problem 3. Flexibility and career paths away from leadership. Solution. Give back what you took away. Specialist qualifications such as ASTs. Remember those? Advanced skills teachers? And enshrine in law the right to flexible working. Oops, sorry, no, a new job share service. That will solve it. Problem 4. Great people to great teachers. Because who else would be great teachers? Must be great people. Great means nothing that is relevant to teaching. Great qualifications, great experience, great personality. How do you measure greatness? In the past, it was just people who were willing to do it while possessing the necessary qualifications. Solution: try out teaching before you apply. That used to be get some observations in. I did that. Everybody did that. And a new simplified application process. Possibly a way to make it more difficult for initial teacher training providers or ITTs to turn people down? Great people indeed. Just to make it clear, most of my colleagues in teaching over the years are dedicated individuals who brought a lot of everything from their lives to teaching. A good teacher for one student is not brilliant for other students, however. But they were almost all good people, to be simplistic about it. What has changed now that will make great people change to teaching? Okay, other than the perceived job security in times of a pandemic and higher pay at the end of the pay scales. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not wizened and cynical when it comes to plans and strategies, particularly out of the current government and its inspectors. However, this is from June 25th, 2020, and it has been like this for a while. And we have the youngest cohort of teachers, and we have the same politicians, albeit with different faces, and bosses at the top of the DFE and OFSTED, who point at the profession and shout, "Enemies of promise!" As John Hattie said, the biggest challenge in his work life was not to counsel schools and teachers in what would work best in their setting. Teachers, he said, know better than him, or inspectors, or anyone from the outside who doesn't know the kids or the school. The biggest challenge was to get teachers to appreciate their own expertise. They are so mired in criticism and self-critical evaluations, they don't see that they are the second most important factor in teaching. Anyway, I hope you can use this information to justify to yourself that things going wrong in education isn't your fault. All the best and see you later.